often when I meet with people for the first time, there's this certain level of shame and guilt of, with their health of how did this happen or why did this happen? And trying to seek an understanding to why their health has gone a certain direction if it's gone in, a not positive route. And it doesn't ever have to be something so drastic. Sometimes it's just, I don't understand why I've put on this amount of weight or, why my joints may hurt or why I can't move like I used to. And too many people get wrapped up in that shame and guilt for too long, and it causes them to freeze and it causes them not to move forward. And so much of that is so wrapped in trying to understand the machine you're living in and what's going on, and as you can't change it, you have to live in it forever. So, people kind of go down this rabbit hole of, you know, trying to figure this thing out and trying to apply different, rationale to, what's going on. I do my best to try to give people comfort in letting them know that if you have let food, for lack of a better word, slide in the wrong direction, or you're not moving like you used to, or you don't have the motivation to work out. And I try to comfort people and let them know, like, well, of course you don't. And in so many words, when people are trying to formulate like how they try to explain what they're asking for is, you know, in a more broad term of like, why is working out or why is being healthy so difficult? And what I try to provide them with is, it's difficult because you don't need to. The original reasoning for, being physically active and being physically well was not for recreation. You weren't trying to be strong or capable or have endurance because it was fun. We don't really tie our human body back to the natural world and its original purpose for the things it does. Why you have shoulders, why you have hands, why you have feet, why you have glutes, why you have legs, like all those things were tied into survival. So, and in that survival, a lot of you being physically well and physically capable had to deal with you acquiring necessities and protecting those necessities, especially for yourself, your family, and future generations. So when people try to have this understanding, like, and what, understanding of what they're watching and why they're watching all these other people or these people in this profession, have this huge motivation to work out and wake up early in the morning. And I'm guilty of that as well. And, how come I'm not like that? Like, of course you're not going to be like that. If you have food in the fridge, if you have shelter, if your family and your children, if you have children, if they're all protected, if they don't have a want for resources, there is no internal motivation for you to go work out and exert in your energy or, exhaust your resources. There's a reasoning why. And in that understanding, you find that, there's still biological functionings and behaviors that are still tied to like the old world and to the natural world, who you're attracted to, your fight or flight response, your stress response, when you feel scared about something, when you feel nervous about something, like all of those things, all that programming has already been kind of put into you. And depending on what environment you grew up in or what environment you still are, moving around in, like sometimes those feelings, those behavior, those warning signs are heightened. Sometimes they're suppressed depending on what's going on. Sometimes the social acceptance of those things is not the best. Like if you're just afraid of someone, you don't know why, and you don't want to seem like, weird about it. Like there's certain things your body tells you to do. And a lot of those things that are telling you what to do, especially when it comes into your health and wellness, a lot of that came from, not having necessities. Like you were doing your best a long time ago, before fitness became recreation, before it became a business. A lot of it was tied up into you getting food, you protecting that food, you not becoming someone else's food, your children not becoming someone else's food. So there was a bigger and there was a deeper motivation for you to be well and to take care of yourself. But the second there were grocery stores, the second there was transportation where you don't have to be well to travel from point A to point B to go get food and then bring it back, your internal motivation to do this kind of what came down. It'd be the same thing if you dropped off a bunch of dead zebra carcasses in the Serengeti for lions, like they would be not in great shape either because there would just be no reason to move, to exert, to take that risk, to expel all this energy and then get it or not get it and then somehow have to manage those resources coming back. a lot of working out and being well and motivation to do it is a management of your resources to your body, your internal self, your internal behavior is, well, why are we exerting ourselves so much? Why are we doing all this work when we have this viable resource of food sitting right here in the fridge? So it's no wonder why you don't want to work out. You don't need to from an internal standpoint, from a acquiring resource standpoint. And that's why it's so important. And just in this day and age, you attach this to something that's meaningful, because left to your own devices of hoping that you just naturally want to work out, that you naturally want to be motivated, and you're watching these people who make money at it, like myself included. A lot of what I do and what I look like and why I do it is because it's tied to, like, this is how I make money. I need to look a certain way as in competition with other people and other businesses and other trainers, other health and wellness professionals, and that I know what I need, that what I'm talking about. If I don't look a certain way, if I don't move a certain way, if I don't have the ability, as far as like my business, unfortunately, gets tied and gets judged and will get criticized and ridiculed based on what I look like. I can't tell you all this advice and then you look at me and I look unhealthy. It just won't connect. So a lot of my motivation is tied up to how I make money, to how I run the business. Like, that's tied into it. But if you don't make money at this is not a business, you may not have that internal get up and go and motivate and work out and push hard. And there's a reason why. You're not going to have it. You might not have it. That's why it's so important you establish something that's meaningful to you. So don't get confused or understood. Try to understand why. Well, how come the person with all the followers and does all the fitness things, and how come they get up early? Like, this is how they make money. This is how they're acquiring a resource that's vital to feed themselves, their family. Like, understanding that connection. If that's not you, it's probably not going to be there. So I try to take people, give comfort in yourself that when you're trying to figure out why things are the way they are, if they've gone in a way that, you didn't want them to go, there's a reasoning behind it. There's a reasoning why you don't want to get up and do those things, because you don't need to. You have your resources. You have these viable resources. You have that most animals, most non-domestic creatures have to fight for their life, where they have to be in shape. They have to be conditioned. They have to be quick and cunning. You may not need to. And because you don't need to have those motivations to get things that are, at your, right at your hands, where you can just grab a hold of it. You don't have to chase or, not be chased. Like, that's a big component of the why, and why you need to establish your reasoning for wanting to do this. So you move forward, so you continue to do it, because you live in a machine that's going to require it. And understanding that requirement and just accepting that, because it's not going to change. You need to physically move this thing. Even though requiring necessities may not be the reason for doing it anymore, you still need to find something that you can attach to motivate you, to give you discipline to get up and take care of this machine that you have to live in forever.